this year. I was also in Kollel, but it looks like a new level in terms of kemach. So I guess there needs to be a certain amount of kemach in order to get started. But once there's Torah, so there's once there's more Torah, there's more kemach, and take a look. So there must be a lot of Torah over here, yes. So the mice is like this. I want to talk about something that's related to this week's parsha, but in what sense? Because this week we end a chumash. The minhag is to say chazak, chazak, v'nis chazak. Some people say v'nis chazek, but it's the end of a chumash. Does that have any halachic significance? The last parsha of a chumash, is it any different than any other parsha? Okay, so if you'll be patient and you listen, you'll see how. The Ramah in Orach Chaim Siman Kuf Lamed Hey Sif Beis says in Bitlu Shabbos Achas Kriyas HaTorah B'Tzibur. If they didn't learn the parsha, L'Shabbos Habo Korin Oisa Parsha Im Parsha HaShayeches L'Oisa Shabbos. So next week you learn last week's parsha together with that week's parsha. If you missed the parsha, the source of this is in the Or Zarua in Hilchos Shabbos Siman Mem Hey that says Maise Hoya B'Kolonia Be'echot Shekoval B'Shabbos. Somebody complained on Shabbos. He had a sichsuch with somebody else, and the halacha is there's a din of ikuv hakriya. A member of the kehila has the right to hold back the ganze tzibur from learning until their issue is settled. Today, Baruch Hashem, we don't do this anymore, but this is how it was. So, Ma'isa hoya b'koloni o be'echot shekaval b'Shabbos haroi likrois by Parshas Emor halakoyanim. It was the Shabbos that he was supposed to learn Parshas Emor. The ikev tefillah u'kriyas haTorah kol hayom. He held back the tefillah and the kriyas haTorah the entire day. Ukshegia Shabbos Habo, when the next Shabbos came, Tziva Reb Eliezer Reb Shimon Zatzal lahaschil beParshas Emor el HaKoyanim, to start with last week's parsha, v'gam b'Har Sinai v'ruuyo lehikoros ba'oiso Shabbos v'shaloi ledaleg Parsha Achas min HaTorah. We shouldn't skip Parshas Emor. Lefi, why? Ki mi'emois Moshe Rabbeinu niskan likros HaTorah b'Parshiyos La'ashlimo b'chol shona v'shona k'dei la'ashmiya la'am mitzvahs v'chukim. So the Shtickle Chiddush Day says Moshe Rabbeinu Parshas, it's only me, Meis Ezra, but this is the lashon of the Or Zarua. So he says that the Ikat Hakon of Kriyas HaTorah is to complete the entire cycle, the entire Torah every year. You shouldn't say that since we passed that Shabbos, so it's bottle the laning of Emor. Lefi ki ein keva beparshiyos likrois parsha zoi b'Shabbos zoi v'zoi b'Shabbos zoi. It doesn't have to be necessarily that Emor is read that week and Bahar is read this week. Elo ki kein nistru aparshas. It was just set up in that order, but it's not be'etzem. It's not that in principle Parshas Emor belongs to that week and Parshas Bahar belongs to this week. The underlying principle is to finish the entire cycle every year. V'rai ledavar shem'ira yom tov b'Shabbos v'doichin ha'parsha shalois Shabbos mepnei parsha shel yom tov haloi miyad b'Shabbos hasmuch al yom tov chayzel l'makosh hapasak. We don't skip that parsha when we didn't learn that parsha because it was Yom Tov. We go back to where we were holding, etc. So he's saying that the Ikei Chiyuv of Kriyas HaTorah is to complete the entire cycle every year. The parshas don't have any intrinsic shaykhis with that week, and therefore he says if we missed the parsha, we learn last week's parsha the next week together with that week's parsha. Okay, it seems like a straightforward idea. However, when the Ramah paskins this halacha from the Or Zarua, the Goyen in the Bir Agro writes, "K'moish kosov b'tfila in brachas daf chavov ta'ov v'lo yispalel v'chulei." In other words, he's saying that the reason that you lay the next week, last week's parsha, is the same principle as we have in Tefillah, that if you miss chakras, you daven 2 minchas. L'chorah, this is not the pirush of the Ramah, which comes from the Arzurah, because the Arzurah says clearly that the reason is because the chiyuv is to complete the Torah every year, and the parshas don't have an intrinsic shaychus with the week. And therefore, if you missed it, you lay it now. It has nothing to do with the din of tashlum in l'chorah. What the guy in l'chorah is putting a different spin on this din. He's not explaining the Arzurah, but he's Weisdois does not agree with the Arzurah, meaning that he holds that the parshas do belong to the week, and therefore it's just like you miss chakras. You can no longer daven chakras. You daven 2 minchas. Saying by the same token, if you missed Emor last week, you lane Emor now, but midin tashlumin. It's like you're doing a shachris in the Zman Mincha, you're doing Parshas Emor in the Zman of Parshas Bahar. So this is the Goyen has a whole new pshat in this din. That is midin tashlumin. But you know, what the Goyen is saying is very shver, because if you look at the Gemara in Brachas, the Mishnah says Tfilas HaShachar ad Chatzos. It's not the Gemara v'Kuli Alma ad Chatzos v'Suloi. Everybody agrees that you can only daven Shachris until Chatzos. V'ha'omar Rav Mori Bereider Rav Huna Bereider Rav Yirmiyah Bar Abba Amar Rav Yochanan To'o v'lo Yispalel Arvis Mispal v'Shachris Shtayim. Shachris, if you miss Shachris, B'Tois, Mispal b'Mincha Shtayim. So the Gemara is asking, you see that you could daven Shachris after Chatzos, because we say that if you miss Shachris, you daven Mincha twice. So the Gemara, Kuli yoyme matzli v'asil. It's not true that the whole day you could still daven, but ad Chatzos you avilei schar tefillah bismano mikan ve'elach. Schar tefillah yavile, or schar tefillah bismana lo yavile. In other words, this is a din of tashlumin. It's not that you could still daven shachris. Shachris is still chatzos. After chatzos, you mispal mincha shnayim, but that's schar tefillah shaloi bismana. So now the Gemara comes and says like this: Iboilahu. So it said over here that if you missed ma'ariv, you daven 2 shachris. You missed shachris, you daven 2 minchas. Iboilahu. Tov lo yispal mincha. Maushi yispal arvishtayim. What about if you missed mincha, you daven twice ma'ariv? Im timtzaloi matov v'lo yispal arvis mispal shachris shtayim mishum dechad yoymo. Tiksiv vayihi erev vayihi boikei yoyim echad. So the ma'ariv and the shachris are of the same day. Aval hoche that you missed mincha, maybe you can't daven 2 ma'arivs. Why? Tefillah b'mokim korbani v'kiven the over yoymoi bottle korbani. Oy dilma. Given that Tzloise Rachamihi Kol Emes the Boye Matzli Va'ozil. Maybe you could be Mashlim even at night, and we don't apply the principle of Ovar Yoimoy Bottle Karbona. So the Gemara Toshema, Rabbi Yochanan said, Tov lo yispal mincha mispal arvishtay. Ve'ein b'zeh mishum de Ovar Zmanoy Bottle Karbona. Now, the Gemara suggested that we should say Ovar Zmanoy Bottle Karbona because Tefillah is b'mokim korban. That was the havamin of the Gemara. But l'chorah, this is true about every chayvus hayon, not only about Tefillah. In other words, you can't do any chayvus hayon tomorrow. Marshall, I mean, if you didn't eat matzah on Tes Vov, you can't eat matzah on Tes Zayin. If you didn't blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, you can't blow the shofar on Sem Gedalia. So it's not really only because it's the Mokum Korban. The principle of Avar Zmanoi Batul Karbonoi is a principle that applies to every Chayvus Hayoy. That when we're saying that Mispalel Arvishtayim because Tefillah Rachami, it's a Chiddush Mesuyim in Tefillah that because Tefillah is Rachami, you could be Mashlim beyond the Zman Tefillah. You could be Mashlim on another day. Like Taisvus says over there, the Rachamininu, we say V'lavai she yispalel adam kol hayoyim kulot Ve'en kan over zmanoi b'tfila acheres. But now, in as much as we'll say that Kriyas HaTorah has a zman kavua, we say that Parshas Emor needs to be read that week. So l'chayr we should say Avar Zmanoi Batul Karbonoi, even though it's not Karbonoi. Any chayvus hayoim you can't do beyond the Zman. We only say by Rachami, because we have a special svara of Rachami that Vayechi Spalot and Kollel Kuloi that it has tashlumin. But outside of Tefillah, l'chayr there is no tashlumin. Truth be told, that there is a discussion about this in Shulchan Aruch in Orach Chaim Siman Nun Ches Siv Zayin. It says Im lo yikaro Kriya Shema Bayon. If somebody missed Kriya Shema Shel Shachris, Yesh Oimrim sheyesh lo tashlumin ba'arvis. V'chein im lo yikaro Kriya Shema Arvis yesh lo tashlumin bayon. V'yesh kolkin. So there's a machloikis if there's tashlumin by Kriya Shema. In the Bir HaGro over there he says V'yesh kolkin. The Bishleim Mitzvila K'moy shekosef shom derachaminin. Yeah. So and if you look at the Mishnah Brura, he says that the Goyen holds like the Yeshkol, meaning that he's supporting the opinion that there's tashlumin only by tefillah because it's rachami, and therefore he holds that there's no such thing as tashlumin by Kriya Shema. No, how in the world did the Goyen say over here that this halach of the Ramah that you lay next week, last week's parsha, is geboit on tov v'lo yispal shachris v'spal mincha shtayim. If we say that there's tashlumin only by rachami, only by tefillah, so this is very shver. So I want to suggest maybe perhaps the ikes sugis HaGemara needs to be understood. What the Gemara thought that we should say Avar Yoimei Batul Karbonoi, and therefore Tov V'lo Yispal Mincha, you shouldn't daven 2 marivs. But Rabbi Yochanan said, his first member, Tov V'lo Yispal Shachris, Mispal Mincha Shtayim. From that we already see that we don't have an issue of Avar Zmanoi, because in the Zman HaMincha it's already Avar Zmanoi of the Tomid Shel Shachar. Well, we were saying that since Tefillah B'Makom Karban, we should say Avar Yoimei Batul Karbonoi. Why Avar Yoimei? If you didn't bring the Tomid Shel Shachar in the Zman Tomid Shel Shachar, you could bring the Tomid Shel Shachar in the Zman Tomid Shel Ben Arbaim, avad not. It's not just if the Yom is over, it's if the Zman is over. So why are we thinking to make a chilik between Tov V'lo Yispal Shachris, which we know that Mispal Mincha Shtayim, and nevertheless we want to say that Tov V'lo Yispal Mincha shouldn't be Mispal Arvis Shtayim. Why? Because of a Yoimai. So it's interesting that Rashi says, given the Avayoyim Batul Kabbalah, ve'enem makrivoy b'yoyim ache im zmanoi kavua k'goy musafin. So it's Rashi says k'goy musafin. In other words, we're talking about tmidim. We're talking about tefillah is b'makom tmidim. How did Rashi get to the musafin? Obviously, because by the tmidim you can't bring the Talmud Shel Shachar in the afternoon either. Rashi's looking for a case where it's totally in the yoin, but it doesn't stem with the Gemara. But why are we now thinking about Musafin? I mean, if the issue is Tmidin, Be'emes the Pshaya pick, it's on the side of the Gemara, is Magia the Rashi that you're supposed to say Tmidin because it's Tmidim. But the emes is that Rashi L'chayre said Musafin for a very good reason, as the Rashash points out. The Velinir, they have a Kollel Rashi, my Kamer Ashas. Aval hoche ova yoimoi batul karbonoi. Hagam tamid shel shachar loy nikrav bizmanoi shuv ein loy tashlumim av bo yisrael hayoim. Ayin teisus menachis dafnun. V'afilu hachi l'tfilah shekenegdoi. We know that iket tashlumim b'minche. L'snei kosav the mikol mokom motzinu karban tzibah the zmanoi kavua v'afilu hachi kosher kol hayoim kegoy musaf. But how's that helping us? I mean, we're talking about Shachris and Mincha, which are b'makom tmidim. So how did it become a mechutin with the din of Musafin that's totally in the Yom instead of the din of Tmidim, which is totally in the morning and in the afternoon? The Kapella. So l'chayr what we need to say is that Tfilas ataka keneget Tmidim. Yeah, keneget. But it's not in Ganzen like Tmidim. In Tmidim, the Tomid Shel Shachar is the choiva of the Shachar. The Talmud Shel Ben Arbaim is the Chayva of the Ben Arbaim. The Ramban in the Sefer Mitzvahs holds that the Talmud Shel Shachar and the Talmud Shel Ben Arbaim are counted as two separate mitzvahs. And Mamela, Ben Arbaim, the Machayev of the Talmud Shel Shachar is over. The Chiyuv of the Talmud Shel Shachar is over. It's no longer. And that's why you can't do Tashlumin anymore, because the Machayev is gone. Just like by Ovar Yoimai of Musafin, the day of the Musaf is today, not tomorrow. Tomorrow is not the day. So the Chiyuv is not here anymore. You can't do Tashlumin anymore. But by Tefillah, even though they were Mesakin, the Tefillah is Keneget Tmidim, in terms of the Zman Hakiyum. But the Ike Chiyuv of Tefillah is a Chayvus Hayoim. Like it says, Erev, Vavoyker, Vetzoharayim, Asicha, Ve'ehem. Memela, even though Bein Arbaim, you can't anymore be Mekayim, the Tefillah Shachris, but the Mechayiv of the Shachris is the Yoim, not the Shachris. The Mechayiv of all three Tefillahs is the Yoim, not the Shachris, the Bein Arbaim, or the Erev. Or Memela Le'ing in Tefillah, the Avar Zmano is totally in the Yoim, just like it is by Musafin. Even though the Tefillahs are Keneget Midim, but the Avar Zmano is totally in the Yoim, like by the Musafin. But Al Koponim, Lefize, when we say that by Tefillah, the Tashlumin is because it's Rachmin in them, it's only by Avar Yoim, but by Yoim, we still have Tashlumin Me'ikar Adin, because we still have the Ikar Mechayiv of Tefillah. So when do we need to come on to the special Svara of Rachami? Only when we want to daven twice Ma'ariv for a Mincha of yesterday. But if we want to daven twice Mincha for the Shachris of today, we don't need to come on to the Svara of Rachami, because the Mechayiv is still Kayom, because it's the Yom that's Mechayiv. Now what I want to say is like this, that when the Goyen says that the Kriya of last week's Parsha, next week, is Midin Tashlumin, he's not coming to argue with the Or Zarua. He's coming to say Pshat in the Or Zarua, meaning to say that the Goyen holds that when the Or Zarua says that there's no Keva, Leparsha Zu, Shetikori Beparsha Zu, it's not an independent time. Really what he's saying is that it's not the Pshat that the week of Emor is the Mechayiv of the Kriya of Parshas Emor. Because if it would be the week of Emor that's Mechayiv the Kriya of Parshas Emor, then it would be next week of our Yoimoy Bottle Karbona. The Mechayiv is the year. It's the cycle that we need to complete the cycle over the year. That's the Mechayiv. But at the same time, there is a keva in terms of when to read the Parshas Emor and when to read the Parshas Bahar. And therefore, this becomes the equivalent of davening two minchas for the shachris of the morning, because the mechayev is here, but the chiyuv is not here. In other words, it's the day, but it's not the time. The same thing is, it's the year, but it's not the week. And Memela, you need both things. You need to, first of all, shtel avek that ein keva leparshias, in terms of it's not that the week of Emor is Mechayiv the Kriya of Parshas Emor. It's the year that's Mechayiv the Kriya of Parshas Emor. Once we said that, we still need to have the concept of Tashlumin, because without Tashlumin, you wouldn't read last week's Parsha, because it's not the Zman HaKiyum of Kriya's Parshas Emor. But now, according to the Goyen, the din should be that by Mezid, if you didn't lane b'Mezid, there's no Tashlum, because by Tefillah, if you didn't daven b'Mezid, there's no Tashlumin. So you're going to have to say that by the Or Zarua, even though the guy that was complaining and stopped the laning, he was amazing, but the rest of the tzibur wasn't amazing. And Mamela, they have Tashlumin. But, yeah, even after that, I mean, listen, the past, what?
Shouldn't Bahar go before Emor then? Because Mincha comes first.
Oh, that's a good ha'ara. That's a good ha'ara. But obviously we have to lane the Torah Kesidra, so we can't do that. Yeah. But about the Parshas of the Or Zarua is that he Bechlal didn't mention the idea of Tashlumin. I mean, the Goyen is a very mechudish Kizak. And Be'emes, if you look at the Pri Megadim, he says that on the Ramah that it's even b'mezid. The Bir Halacha says that according to the Goyen l'chore mashma the dafke b'shoigi k'may b'tefillah. Not clear what's l'chore mashma. L'chayra, it's much more than l'chayra. If the Goyen is referencing the Gemara of Tov v'lo yispalel, so b'meisid this is not applicable. There's another nafkamina ladina because Tosfos says that only in the zman hatfila hasmucha is it shaykh tashlumin. If you didn't daven ma'ariv and then you didn't daven shachris, let's say, and you want to be mashlim by mincha, so no, only and so it says in the Rambam, Tov lo yispal lo yitfila zu v'lo yitfila hasmucha lo. Eine mishalom elo ha'achroina bolvad. And as I state in Shulchan Aruch. But after that, according to the Goyen, in a case that they didn't lane for 2 weeks, you can't lane anymore because Mashain came according to the Parshas of the Or Zarua, that has nothing to do with Tashlumin. You'll be able to do more than that. However, the Magen Avraham brings from a Chuvas Maharam means that if there were 2 Parshas Mechuboros in the Shabbos that we missed, you can't lane 3 Parshas the next week because Loi Matzinu La'olam Shekorim Shloisha. As I said, the Maharam means. So if they missed 2 weeks, so even without the Goyen, we can't do on the 3rd week all 3 Parshas. But the Magen Avraham says that in the Hagoyis Minhagim, he said on the Maramins, V'lo nirim dvorav be'einai. And so holds the El Yerabah Halachic that even more than 2 Parshas Yemashla. But that much is clear that according to the Gra, if on the Shabbos that we were mevatel 2 Parshas, we in the Shabbos that we were mevatel, there were 2 Parshas Mechuboros. It could be that you could be mashlim 3 Parshas the next week because it's the Tefillah Asmucha. Yeah, but if you were machzir 2 Shabbos, you can't make Tashlumin because Tashlumin is only in the Zmana Tefillah Asmucha. And so says the Mishnah Berurah in Bittul Kama Shabboses. Yesh oimrim de ein likrois b'Shabbos habo ki im hasidro ha'achroina hasmucha lezeh. V'yesh oimrim tzorich lahashlam b'tzibur kol hasidro shebitlu. Umi biur hagro, writes the Mishnah Berurah, mashma the svir lekadei arishoina, that you can't do more than the last week's parsha, which actually stems with the fact that the Goyen said that it's a din of Tashlumin, and Tashlumin you can't do more than the last tefillah.
Then the whole year should be ruined.
The whole year should be ruined. That's a very harsh statement. What do you...
Ours rules, that's a din on the year.
Right, so listen. You mean to say that we should stop blaming for the rest of the year? No.
Hypothetically, I'm not.
I know that you're not positing the halacha. You're just suggesting that there is a problem. There is a problem in the whole year. It could be. Listen, people have problems. So now I just want to say that the Sharat Zion says that according to the Goyen you could only do the last week. L'chari Soiser in the Tosefes Ma'aser Rav. In Hilchos Kriyas Torah it says, "B'zeh Aloshin K'sheyotzo Hagro Mibeiso Asur." The Gro was in jail, as you know. It wasn't that Goyen put him into jail. It was Yidden in the Kehillah. There was a machlokes on the Rabbonis in Vilna, and it came to be that the Goyen was in jail. Now, K'sheyotzo Hagro Mibeiso Asur. I'm just mentioning that because people think things are getting much worse. In some sense, things are getting better. I mean, you don't have to. Tosfos Yontif was sentenced to death because of a din Torah that he paskined and the balabos that lost. I mean, massive him and he was sentenced to death. In the end, he got out. But today doesn't go that far. So k'sheyotza hagro mi beis ha'asurin koro lebalkore sheyikra lefonav kol dalet sidros mi dalet shvuos hashayoshem. So l'chayr mafurish that the guy held that you can do it, but I really think that if you pay attention to the lashon, it says kara lebalkore sheyikra lefonav kol dalet sidros. It doesn't say that he made a minyan and that they made brachas. Parshas it's mashma that this wasn't a real Kriyas Torah. So and Mistama, that's how you have to learn, because according to the
only thing that was talking about was already tzibur. That was taking tzibur. Was never.
Listen, so this was tamach silsul shenohag hagoyin ba'atzmai. that he wanted to hear the Kriya. Kollel, listen, this is the Lashon. Kollel bal korei, sheyikre lefanov, kol dalit sidres midal shvuz hashiyoshav. It doesn't sound like he organized a minyan, and then it doesn't sound like that. Okay, now I just want to tell you like this. In the Chuvas Maramins, is actually talking about a case where they were mavatal the kriya of Vayakol Pekudei, which went together, and they came to be mashlim. They wanted to be mashlim Shabbos Vayikra, Vayakol Pekudei, and Vayikra. So after he says that you can't do this because we don't find ever that we lane 3 parshas together, he writes weiter. There's another issue. Given the Pekudei Havisium HaSefer, Ein svara b'Shabbos achas likrois misefer l'sefer. Forget about the fact that Vayakol Pekudei were mechubarim. Even if the issue would be just Pekudei and Vayikra. He says, being mechaber one sefer to another sefer is not a way. B'frat leminhagenu da'anan nahaginon kisheyesh beis sidrois dvukois. Chad gavre kori soif sidra rishoyna utchila sidra shniya b'yachad. When we do Parshas Mechubaras, we could call one oilef from one Parsha into the next. V'yofem enogenu, it's right to do so. Kedei shaloi lahafsik ben sidro lesidro. Kedei sheyehei nira keilu hu chad sidro. In Cain, ki korin hacha Pekudei and Vayikra. If we're going to lay Pekudei together with Vayikra, oz ho yitzorich likrois lechad gavre, soif Pekudei utchilas Vayikra. The ein zemen anochem likrois mitrei chumshi legavre. It's not a good thing to do. Ki tikun soifrim lahafridom ba'arba shitin. We have dalet shitin ben sefer l'sefer, 4 empty lines. Sheyesh cholok ben chumash l'chumash k'dei isab mesechta sefer. V'chein anu na'aginon la'achas siyum ha'sefer oinin hakol b'kol ram chazak. V'taima shelo yisay minik. Why do we say chazak? Ki Moshe kosav acha kol perik oy acha siyum ha-mesechta hadron aloch. Kloiman. V'yachad desimu ha-perik oy ha-mesechta yishom aloch o pen tishkach es hadvorim chazor bohen shaloi tishkach. In Cain, hakol korim b'kol rom shenistayim ha-chumash. We made an official announcement that we came to the end. L'chein ein svara v'ein nochen likri oy lo isli gavre toich ha-chumash hasheni. So, it's interesting that he says that the chazak means that we finished, because the meaning of chazak is that we should chazer over the sefer. Just like we say hadron aloch means to chazer over the mesechta, not to forget it. How in the world did the Maramins read into the words chazak, chazak, v'nis chazak, or v'nis chazek? The Mishnah Berurah actually says you should say chazak, chazak, chazak. But how did he see that these words have any meaning of chazorah? Hadron aloch means in Aramaic, we will go over you again. But where did he see that chazak means chazorah? Where does chazak mean chazorah? I think that it's based on the Gemara in Brachas Daf Lamed Beis that Reb Chama Reb Chanina said, it says over there, Dalet Dvarim Tzrichim Chizuk. One of the things it says, Imro Odom shehispalel v'lo yinene yachzev v'yispal shena mekavel Hashem chazak v'yam yislebecha mekavel Hashem. Tonu Rabban Arbet Dvarim Tzrichim Chizuk. Torah Ma'asim Tovim Tefillah V'derech Tefillah Minayin shenemar kavel Hashem chazak v'yam yislebecha mekavel Hashem. So you see that what's Chizuk? Chizuk means you tried, you did it once, you weren't successful. Try again. Kavel Hashem chazak v'yam yislebecha. So he's saying that when we say at the end of a chumash, chazak, chazak, when it's chazak, we mean to say we finished the chumash and we don't really feel so accomplished. I mean, if we're smart enough to know where we're holding. So Mamela, we say, chazak, chazak, when it's chazak, we'll chazer it over, we'll try again. So that's l'chora the meaning of chazak, chazak, when it's chazak, according to the Maramid. But contrary to what people think that, today there's divrei chizuk, which is really big chizuk for the Yitzhar. They say, you're great, I mean, you're doing half of a fellow, I mean, every failure is celebrated. And that's like chizuk today. Chizuk really means, I mean, do something about it. Chazak, v'his chazak ba'ad ameinu v'orei elokeinu v'Hashem atov be'einav yas. It means strengthen yourself. It means try harder. That's what it means, chazak. It doesn't mean chizuk, means learn it again. It doesn't mean that you should feel that, you know, what you did, even though it was insufficient, but nevertheless it's good enough. It means it's not good enough, and try again.